Hello everyone, this is Lisa with Old Orchid Yarnery, and I'm here to show you a tutorial for our block party block for the month of May. This is the knit block. This is called the Bargello. As you can see, it's 3 colors and it makes this nice chevron pattern across. Got a couple things in it that maybe you haven't done before, so let me show you. First thing I want to talk to you about is the number to cast on. When I give you the pattern, you're going to see it says cast on 51. Don't cast on 51. For one thing, that's not right. It doesn't come out right in the sequence of the pattern. But the other thing you need to remember is this says size 7 needles, cast on 51. Remember, you need to cast on the number and with the size of needles that's going to give you the size square that you're shooting for. The very first square that you did, wherever you started, was your target size. And so we're aiming to make the rest of your squares that same size after blocking. My other squares, I'm blocking out to about 9 inches, and I found that 51, even if I had to add on a couple to it to make it work with the pattern, was too much. It made too wide of a square. So I dropped that down. The number of stitches you're going to want here is something divisible by 4, and then you add 5 to that for the edge stitches. So I chose to do 41 for mine because that was divisible by 4, 36. Plus 5 makes 41, and that turns out to be about the right size. Here's mine that I'm working on right here, and that's just about the size I need it to be. So for our demonstration today, though, I'm going to do a smaller section because I wanted to show you how it starts out. So the pattern starts with 3 preparation rows. You'll see you're going to cast on your number of stitches, then your preparation row 1 is a wrong side, and you're going to purl with your main color, and that's going to be whatever you want to be the color on the edge. Then preparation row 2 with your main color, you're going to knit. I've already done those 2. I've cast on, I've purled a row, and now I've knit a row. So now we're on preparation row 3. Still with your main color, we're going to purl 2, and then we're going to purl 1, wrapping yarn around the needle twice. So let me show you what that looks like. All right. So we're just going to purl 2 like normal. And then we're going to purl 1, wrapping the yarn around the needle twice. So you go in as if to purl, and we're going to wrap 2 times around that needle and go back down and through. So what that gives us is this double stitch with 2 loops coming out of the 1 purl bump below. Can you see that? So we did purl 2, and then we did purl 1, wrapping the yarn twice, and now we're going to purl 3, and then purl 1, wrapping the yarn twice. So here's purl 3, 1, 2, and 3, and now on the next one we put in as if to purl, we wrap, and then wrap again, and go back through, again giving us that double loop coming out of the 1 purl bump. So we're going to repeat that across the row, purl 3, and then purl 1, wrapping the yarn twice. Here's purl 3. I'll show you that purl 1 wrapping twice again. So go in, and if you're purling, wrap 2 times around your needle and go back down through. Now if you were knitting English style, let me try to show you that. So we're going to purl 3 and 2 and 3. And now we're going to purl 1, wrapping twice. So go in and just literally wrap the yarn 2 times around the needle. Oh my goodness. Okay, go in and then literally just wrap the yarn 2 times around the needle and then finish your purl stitch. Now it says at the very end you end the row with 2 purls. So we have 2 stitches left at the end here, so we're going to just purl those. So that is preparation row 3. Now beginning at row 1, which is so here's the preparation rows, and now beginning at row 1, we're going to change to our next color. In this particular example, their main color is white, color A is dusty green, and color B is olive, or a darker green. For my situation here, I'm going to do my main color is this beige tan color. Color A is going to be this green for me, and color B is going to be this dark teal. So beginning with row 1, we're now going to add in color A. Now I found that because it's a 4-row repeat, So we're not going to have very much of color A before we go back to the main color again. So I ended up leaving my main color attached and just ran it up that 4 rows, and it seems to have worked fine on my other block. So let me show you. In case you're not familiar with how to attach a second color, we're just going to go in the first stitch as if we're going to knit it, and we're going to loop our yarn right over it, just like this. I'm just making a loop, and hold that loop and pull through. Complete the stitch. Now it's all going to seem a little loose here at the beginning because my main color is still loose and attached, and the beginning of this color A is kind of loose and attached. Don't worry, we can tighten that up in a minute. All right, so right side with A, we're going to knit 2. So that was the first one. Now we're going to knit a second one. And now it says with yarn in back, slip 1, dropping the extra wrap. So we're just going to keep the yarn in the back, and we're going to slip this stitch right here like this, and there's that extra loop that we made, and we're just going to let that slip right off. And now we're going to knit 1, and the next stitch is called an ML, and that's described up here in the pattern. It's called make loop. Insert right needle into the next stitch 2 rows below, pull up a loose loop of yarn, knit the next stitch, pass the loop over the stitch just knit. Let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go into the stitch 2 rows below. So here's my stitch that I would be knitting. Here's the stitch 1 row below. Here's the stitch 2 rows below. So I'm going to go right into the middle of that stitch, and I'm going to pull up a loop of my yarn. I have to pull it a little big, and now I'm going to knit this stitch up on the needle, and then I'm going to pass that loop over that I pulled up. Don't worry, I'll show you again. And then knit 1. And now we're going to repeat from the asterisk across our row. So with the yarn in back, we're going to slip 1, letting that loop off. I know I'm in the right spot because that's that double wrap. And now I'm going to knit 1, and now here we are at that make loop stitch again. So here's the stitch on my needle, here's the one right below, here's the one 2 below. I'm going to go right into the middle of that stitch, grab my yarn, and pull up a loop. Now I'm going to knit the stitch on my needle, and then I'm going to pass that loop over that I lifted, and then knit 1 more. All right, one more time. So we're going to slip with the yarn in back, slip and let that extra loop drop off. Then we're going to knit 1. Then here's the stitch on my needle. There's the first one below. Here's the second one below. I'm going to go right into the middle of it and pull that yarn up into a loop, knit the stitch on the needle, and then pass the loop over and off. And then knit 1. Now the pattern says you're repeating that all the way across, ending with the slip 1 with the yarn in back, dropping the extra stitch, and then knitting 2. So that's what you should have at the end of your row. All right, so there is our row 1. Now you'll see that letting off that extra loop has created this really long stitch. It's very elongated there. And then dipping into the stitch 2 below drops that color down, the green color for me, down a couple of rows. You'll start to see the pattern begin to form. Let me show you on the one I've already got going. So here you can see, here are the elongated stitches, and then down here is where the green is dipped into the row 2 rows below, the stitch 2 rows below. So the combination of those elongated stitches and then dipping in 2 rows below gives you that chevron pattern. All right, row 2. We're still with color A. It's a 4-row repeat. You're going to keep using each color for 4 rows. So we're on row 2 with color A. We're going to purl 2. And then with the yarn in front, you're going to slip a stitch. So purl 2, keep the yarn in front, and you see that stitch is a different color than what I'm knitting with. That's your clue that you're in the right spot. I'm just going to slip that with my yarn in front, and now I'm going to purl 3 and purl 3 and slip one with yarn in front, and you're going to repeat that all the way across the row. Purl 3, I got on the wrong side, got flipped around there. My clue is that I need to be slipping that stitch that's a different color. Okay, and then I'm going to purl 3. Okay, I just had to fix a couple of my stitches. They got a little twisted around. Remember, the one you're slipping is the one that's the different color other than what you're knitting with. And then that says for row 2, you're going to end with a purl 2. And I have 2 stitches left at the end. So we're going to purl 2. Row 3 is going to be your favorite because row 3 is just knit. So here again, you can see those elongated stitches that we've slipped. They're getting longer because we've slipped them, but now we're finally going to knit them. So row 3, still with color A. Remember, each color you do for 4 rows. We're just going to knit across. I'll go through this repeat again with you at least once more, maybe twice more, just to make sure that you've got it. Because it is a little strange with dipping into the 1-2 below and wrapping the yarn twice when you do the purls. So I just want to make sure you see it happen a couple of times so you're comfortable doing it. And you know, you can always slow down these videos if you want. To do that on YouTube, you find the little gear and you touch that, and then you can select your playback speed. You can slow it down if you'd like. Almost done knitting across. Okay, now we're going to do row 4. Row 4. This is going to be that wrapping the needle twice row again, kind of like our preparation row 3. All right, row 4 with color A. We're going to purl 2. Up there. Okay. Purl 2, and now we're going to purl 1, wrapping the yarn twice around the needle. Remember, creating that extra loop. And now purl 3, and then purl 1, wrapping twice. And that's what you're going to repeat all the way across your row. Purl 3, and then purl 1, wrapping the yarn twice. Wrapping it twice, just literally wrapping that yarn twice around the needle tip. And then purl 3. And purl 1, wrapping around the needle tip, and the pattern says we're going to end with a purl 2, and there's 2 stitches left. Perfect. Purl 2. Don't you love it when it works out that way? I do. Okay, so row 5 through 8 with our main color, we're going to go back to the main color again, because you see here on the pattern picture you've got the main color in between each color. So we're going to go back to our main color, and we're going to repeat rows 1 through 4. Now, because I'm not going to use this color green again for a little while, I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And now here is my main color that I've just let hang out down there. Get it off of all my ends. So row 1 starts with a knit 2. Now when I'm pulling this up, let me show you. I'm going to knit my first stitch kind of loosely, because I don't want to pull too tightly on that yarn that I let carry up from here up to here. So I'm going to knit 2, and now with yarn in back, slip 1, dropping the extra wrap. So there's my one to slip, and then you see that extra wrap hanging out there? I'm going to go ahead and let it drop off, and I'm going to knit 1, and now here's that make loop stitch. We're going to go, here's the stitch on our needle, here's 1 below, here's 2 below. Stretch it out a little bit if you need to. See, here's the first hole below, there's the second hole below. So I'm going to go into that second one, I'm going to pull up a loop, I'm going to knit the stitch on my needle, and then I'm going to pass that loop over, and then I'm going to knit 1. All right, so we're going to slip, letting that extra loop drop off with our yarn in the back. Then we're going to knit 1. Now we're going to do make loop. There's the first hole below, there's the second one. Go in and pull up a loop, knit the stitch on your needle, lift the loop over. Don't forget that part or you'll end up with too many stitches. And then knit 1. We're going to slip that off with the extra loop, knit one, make loop by going into the second stitch below, pulling up a loop, knit the stitch on the needle, and pass the loop over, and then knit one. Okay, then the pattern says we're going to end our row by slipping and letting that extra loop drop off, and then knitting two. So that was the first row of the repeat. Now the second row of the repeat, still with the same color, we're going to purl two, with the yarn in front you're going to slip one. See, I'm knitting with this tan color and I'm slipping the green one. So I'm going to slip one, and now I'm going to purl three. Because I'm on the purl side and my yarn's in front, that's where it stays when I'm slipping. Purl three, slip one, purl three, here I am to the stitch that's a different color. That's my hint. That's the one I'm slipping. Purl three, slip that one, and then it says we end with purl two. All right, before I move on to row three, I wanted to show you something. See how these end stitches are a little strange and loose? That's just because of all these ends hanging out here. So I usually just kind of give them a little tug to tighten them up a little bit. I don't want to be too aggressive with it, but I just don't want anything feeling too loose. All right, row three. Remember, that's our favorite. We're just going to knit. We've got these extra elongated stitches here that we've slipped twice. So now we're going to knit them because that will close them off. If we just continue slipping that stitch, it'll go all the way to the top and that'll be kind of a mess. Not really the look we're going for. So row three, we're just knitting across. And then row four, we're going to do that double wrap purl stitch again to get us ready to drop off that extra loop on the next round. So here I'm just finishing up row three, which is just knitting. Row four, still with the same color. Remember, 4 rows of each color. I'm going to purl two. And now I'm going to purl one and wrap the yarn around the needle twice. Finish the purl. You purl two and then do that wrap at the beginning, but then all the way across your row, you're purling three and then purling with the double wrap. So I'm going to purl three. And now the double wrap purl. And purl three. And the double wrap purl. And according to the pattern, I end with 2 purls. Okay, so that was our 4-row repeat with my main color. So now the pattern tells us rows 9 through 12, we're going to switch to the next color. Remember, I'm going to leave my main color attached. And I'm going to switch to my dark teal kind of color here. Find the end. It's attached to something over here. Okay. So let's go through that repeat one more time, and then I think you'll have it. So we're back to row 1. It's row 9 in the pattern, but we're doing a 4-row repeat of rows 1 through 4. So with the new color, we're going to knit 2. So I'm just going in, going to loop that yarn over, pull it through to complete the stitch, get that color attached. Remember, not worrying too much about these loose stitches at this point in time. Kind of tug on things a little bit, but we'll do that again in a minute. So there's our first knit, and now our second knit. And now with the yarn in back, we're going to slip and let that extra loop drop off. Then we're going to knit one, and then we're going to do our make loop stitch. So we're going to go 2 stitches below, insert our needle and pull up a loop, knit the stitch on the needle and bring the loop over, and then knit 1. Slip 1, letting the extra drop off, knit 1, 1, 2, make loop, and pass the loop over, and knit 1. We're on either side of that make loop, there's a knit 1. So here I'm going to slip this stitch off and the extra loop, knit 1, make loop by going into the stitch 2 rows below, pulling up a loop, knitting the stitch on my needle and passing that loop over, and knitting 1. Okay, and now at the end we're going to slip, letting the extra loop drop off, and knit 2. Okay, row 2, or row 10, which is also row 2. All right, we're going to purl 2, and now we're going to slip 1. Remember, it's the other color, so that's the one I'm slipping with my yarn in front because I'm purling. I'm on the wrong side. Now we're going to purl 3, slip that stitch of the other color, purl 3. You're just going to repeat this all the way across. Slip the stitch of the other color, purl 3, slip the stitch, and in the row with purling 2. Okay, we're back to our starting point with these loose stitches, so this is where I'm going to stop for just a minute and kind of tighten things up a little bit. So I'm just going to start pulling on the tails, not too aggressively. I just want to make sure that everything's where it belongs. There we go. Okay, so row 3. Row 3, we're just knitting. We're just going to knit across. It might feel very strange knitting that elongated stitch that we've slipped a couple of times. See, here it is. It's super long, but just go ahead and knit it like normal. By slipping that stitch for a couple of rows, it makes it longer so that it makes the peak of the chevron in our Bargello pattern. Okay, just, oops. Stitch got away from me there. Okay, just knit all the way across. All right, and row 4 of the repeat, which is row 12 of the pattern, we're going to purl 2. This is our wrapping row. We're going to purl 2, and then we'll purl 1, wrapping the yarn twice around the needle, and then purl 3, and then purl 1, wrapping twice. And that's what you'll repeat across the rest of the row. Purl 3, and then purl 1, wrapping twice. Ending with a purl 2. There's purl 3, we're almost there. Purl 1, wrapping twice, ending with a purl 2. Oops. Okay, so we're now up to row 13 in the pattern, which is going to be row 1 of the 4-row repeat. You can see our design starting to form here. It gets even more pronounced, I think, when it's a little bigger. So here we go. You can see those chevrons going up at the peak of that really long stitch, coming down to here where we drop 2 stitches, 2 rows below, and back up to the elongated stitch that's the peak, and back down again. So according to the pattern, you're going to go ahead and repeat that, really for our purposes, as many times as you need until the square is as tall as you need it to be. You can see in this particular example in the picture, they've done 1, 2, 3.5 repeats. And that's what they're telling you here. Repeat, do everything, and then repeat rows 5 through 20 twice more, then rows 5 through 8 once more. So you're ending with the main color up at the top. So whenever you get to the point where you want to finish because your size is reached, then you're going to end with your main color at the top. The only other thing I want to tell you about this is that if you don't want to use 3 colors, you don't have to use 3 colors. You could just use 2 colors. You could alternate back and forth between 2 colors all the way up. And that would also look really pretty. Depending on the colors you've chosen for your squares, 3 colors might work for you, or you might prefer 2. I suppose you could even use more colors than that. You could do each line a different color for those of you that have chosen more than 3 colors for your blankets. All right, I hope that works for you. If you have any trouble, please let me know. You know you can always get a hold of me by email or come on in. Looking forward to seeing you. Bye-bye.